Two of our coaches recently battled it out heads up as part of the advanced tournament course on PokerCoaching.com that will be released on November 25th, 2022. Both these players are regulars in the biggest poker tournaments in the world. Jonathan Jaffe has been crushing online heads-up games for many, many, many years, and he has over $6 million in live tournament earnings. His opponent is Justin Saliba, who actually just won his second World Series of Poker bracelet. Both these players know a thing or two about heads-up poker. These hands that you're going to see feature a big blind ante, which is the structure you will be playing in a live poker tournament. Most casinos now use the big blind ante, and you want to make sure you understand how to adjust your strategies to account for it. It turns out you have to get in there and battle very, very hard, as you will see in these hands, and especially in one where Justin limps from the small blind, Jonathan Jaffe shoves it all in for 40 big blinds, and Justin has to figure out what to do. Would you believe you're supposed to be making gigantic shoves like this? That's what good poker is when there's a big blind ante. Anyway, I hope you learn a ton and enjoy the lesson.
Really big ISO size, we're fighting really hard for pots. It's just not that hard to have, equity versus each other's ranges in this format. So it's interesting because I need to even pay attention to my own mind, because on this 10-10-3, it's kind of like that one board where it's like a middling board with the ace above it. And I kind of thought to myself again, like, if he checks, maybe I should check back my hand. And it's very possible that I'm just checking my ace too much for that spot, because I don't want him to, because when he checks, he's obviously going to have a pretty polar check raising strategy. So it's possible that I'm not betting often enough in that kind of spot. I think it would be kind of reasonable to just push equity with my hand. Checking's also pretty easy. 10-5. Maybe I should go bigger then. I'm gonna check, but man, it feels weird. I really did kind of just want to bet 60 again there. Where's the running hot emoji? Yeah. Nice answer. I think I probably would have, 10-10-3 is so disconnected that maybe I just bet for value a little bit more often with this hand, but
yeah.
Check's probably okay. And this is kind of that same spot where versus a check, you would find some amount of check backs with this ace-9, right?
Versus a check, I would have found... Sorry, say it again?
So like after check flop, turn ace. It's kind of like that spot we saw where it's like a middling board, turned ace again, where like some of your 10s are definitely going to bet, but you're also going to look for a lot of check raises. So I think like putting some ace-x into a turn check back makes sense.
Totally, especially if you don't think your kicker is going to play, so you're not getting the cooler. So ace-9, you do think your kicker is going to play a chunk of the time, but like, when you're working with an ace-4, ace-5, I close to auto check those on the turn. There's just so little incentive because you're not getting two streets often.
Nice, love that.
Yeah. And I have 10-5 over there, so you dodged a little bullet with that check. Yeah. I will say that, you mentioned often betting it for value, and I'm totally with you. I think I would mostly bet the ace-9, and that's more a product of the fact that despite the fact that board pairs get bet too frequently, like you talked about in our smaller ante video, but the 10-10 boards are really good for the opener. And I think part of that is a product of me 3-betting so many 10x, especially suited 10s. But the other part is that your Broadways, which you have far more of than me, are going to have a lot of leverage to bump me off my 3x, my pocket 4, stuff like that. So you've got all this queen jack, king queen, ace jack stuff that is going to have some leverage later on.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah.
Whereas if we change it to 9-9-3, you're really lacking that leverage.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. That makes sense.
If you're enjoying this heads up content from two of the best poker players in the world, just wait until you've seen their entire heads up battle in PokerCoaching.com's brand new advanced tournament course. You can actually get 61% off right now. Head over to PokerCoaching.com/Black Friday. Check it out, and I am sure you're going to learn a ton.
What do you think about my raise size? Like, I just felt like it's just so hard to get paid here. Maybe I went too small, but What do you think?
Yeah, I think you did the right thing here from an exploitative point of view. I think I was full. Oh wait, I folded to both, didn't I?
I don't remember.
No, maybe I called this. Yeah, no, I snapped this. It was small.
Yeah.
And I think I was going to fold to the big size. But if we go back just a second, just to look at sizes. Um, so you go 13. Here's my pitch for going to, let's call it 26. In general, are you twice as likely to get called for this 13 than you are for the 26? I don't think so. I maybe here exploitatively against me. I think I was ready to make a fold against you, but I can actually think that and still make the call.
Yeah.
Let alone like it's really tough to start executing bluffs when your bluff size is this big and you have infinite combos of hands that can bluff.
Yeah.
When you call the turn, you've got every jack, queen, king, jack, king, queen, plenty of spade combos, some 3x, like so many possible hands. And you have to be able to have, a chunk of raises here where I'm basically 10x and bluff. And maybe even some king highs possibly.
Nice, yeah.
But yeah, I think that for the people who are kind of always finding this small size, I think we mostly want to have a bigger size. But again, I don't know that can be that critical because from a metagame point of view, I think you probably chose the right thing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, dude, talking about the bluffs, like 2s through 9s, 4, 5, 4. I mean, like there's so many hands, right, in my range.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
I love like 2s, 4s are awesome because you block me from my most likely ace, which is an auto call, of course.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think those the lowest pairs that get counterfeited are yeah, pretty reasonable in those spots. I really like how much you think about offsuit aces and most likely aces and things like that. Even the kings.
There's so many combos. Yeah. I mean, even with two aces out there, just knowing that I have ace two and ace four, maybe not close to pure because I won't bet them on the turn always like I did here. But still, there's 8 combos of those. That's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually even a spot on the turn where, like, if I would have bet small, I felt like if I bet small, I would push equity quite a bit on this turn like this. It's a spot where like the 9-10, 9 jack's going to bet far more often than like the ace 9, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, when I went big bet, I think I just play check a lot easier. This is also a spot where I think that talk about robust strategies, right? Like, so we talked about the flop a little bit. I want to just like say a quick note about like board coverage. A lot of players are going to be very polar on the flop and they're never going to have an 8 or a 9 in their range. And so Jaffe's going to, like, if he's playing somebody like that, is going to realize that. And on an 8 or 9, he's just going to mash me with everything, right? So, like, I think having some board coverage in different lines is super useful against strong players because, like, if this 9 comes and I can never have a 9 here, he can bluff everything, right? I mean, you would just be all in here with so many hands, I would assume, against a lot of different players.
Yeah. And I think, what you're talking about here is that when you look to a big bet, the instinct is to think polar. Justin's got pocket 9s, Justin's got 8-9 suited, Justin's got ace queen, and then he's got some cool bluffs, 10-7 suited, 7-6, king 10. All that makes sense. And those are the first boxes you should check when you learn a big bet. The last layer is the most difficult to learn, which is this middle grouping where you're like, wait, I thought Justin said when we bet big, we should be polar. Yes, most of your range. And then there's a small sliver that is the ace 9, the 9-10, that kind of like fits the middle group. I can remember I used pocket 8s for like a pot size bet on a jack 7-5 against Brewer and one of these high rollers. And it just works really nicely where you pot the flop, you check turn basically pure, and now you've got this middle grouping of hand, whereas when you bet pot flop and check turn, if you don't have that type of hand, you never have value unless you're doing something silly like checking ace jack on a turn.
Yeah, I think that's great, man. I think that's great. Yeah, and using like the pocket pair above the second card on the board is perfect, right? Because like you gain that protection from the whatever it might be, the 9-10 that has no equity, but against your specific hand, it's kind of nicer to fold out.
And you're getting a street and a half of value from his middle pair or bottom pair, while at the same time, providing a ton of protection against other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So you find the jam, you had value in the spot, but I like your jam size. It seems perfect to me.
Yeah, it just seems like you're going to be in this spot when you have that queen low or that 4x, that I have bluffs. And very often you just have nothing there. You're just going to have a king 10 or whatever. And I don't think my block is going to get paid much at all anyway. So
Nice.
let's go ahead and jam, take your, queen X and put it in a really tough spot. And then, which I don't think you have often, but I think, you could definitely big bet check like a queen 3 suited.
100%. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
even
And
some queen
then,
10-0, right? Queen 10-0, queen 7-0. Like, I think I definitely gonna find some amount of checks on the turn.
yeah, 10-4 suiteds.
Yeah.
And you're just in a tricky spot knowing that you almost never have a 9. And if Justin does have ace 9 here, I don't see how I don't lose all of it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Definitely need to put some hands at the stacked up into a pretty strong limp range. Man, it feels so bad to call. 40 bigs. I mean, ace hit suited is so good, right? Oh gosh, king 6. So look at this. My mouse goes to call.
Yeah.
So now we're playing 40 BBs deep, and this is a spot where
Should we bring up the 35 and see if anything comes up there, and
yeah,
we'll go off that?
yeah, absolutely.
Probably a little closer than the 50 is.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that the 35 is probably the last.
Last shoves that exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of shove.
Yeah. So look at this. This is the first. This is the 35 BB, um, big blind versus small blind limp strategy. And so, this is again a function of the fact that there's an entire big blind in the pot. You have 35 bigs, and when you shove, you're increasing your stack by almost 10%, right?
Yeah.
You're picking up the 3 bigs. So it makes sense to have a lot of shoves. Now let's see small blind limp versus big blind jam. For 35, I'm peeling into ace 5 suited, 10-9 suited, king 9 suited. And so, do you want to talk a little bit about, Jaffe, about one of the adjustments that you were making it kind of be
Yeah, I
stuffed up?
thought you were going to overfold, but I never dreamed you were going to fold ace 8 suited. No offense.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, I honestly, I thought you were going to be, my best guess is you were going to be around ace 8-0, ace 6 suited. I thought maybe pocket fours. And then I thought there was a portion of the middle, like, actually, I thought you'd probably be about king 9 suited. So I was just off there. I thought that might be a little lighter. But the biggest portion that gets neglected is people don't call off with queen 10 suited, jack 10 suited, 10-9 suited. Everybody, like, it just looks like you're not trying if you call with those.
Yeah.
So I think that gets neglected a lot, where I think people may overcall, and I'm projecting, this is where I might, is king jack O. That's about the only one I can see.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
But yeah, so if we see where I'm supposed to, if we go back to the other chart, jams are coming. The ones that I remembered was, I remembered the 9-6 suited because it's kind of on an island outside of what's below it there, 8-6 suited. I remembered that, and then I remembered the ace lows, although I remembered them being more prevalent. I thought it was like ace 2 through ace 4 were close to pure, which is not the case.
Okay.
And I was not going to fuck around with the top of the chart, the ace queen O, ace jack O, king queen. I thought that was garbage because I thought I was going to get undercalled by the hands that I want there.
Nice.
So that was kind of thing. And then I said, you know what, we're going to pump it up to some even to some bigger depths, and especially like if we have a 10 or the low queen suited, because I didn't think you're going to hit like a queen 10 suited call. Or that type of hand class. So I thought that would be a good spot to just really stretch and just bang away.
Yeah, man. And I mean, like even just looking at the spot, I mean, my immediate reaction is call, but like it just is uncomfortable looking at a 40 big blind jam, and I'm just like, okay, at this point you hadn't done this before, and I'm like, man, okay, so what's gonna be the first hand that becomes easy to find this jam?
Twos, threes, fours.
Exactly. My mind just went 2s through 5s, ace 9-0. That was just like,
ooh, ace 9, interesting.
Like I thought ace 9-0 in my mind was like just gonna be one of these hands that gets in there. I was like, I don't know if he's gonna find like the 9-6 suited to just rip here and stuff. And so this was a spot where I adjust in one direction, you adjusted the other, and you were all of a sudden gaining quite a bit of EV.
Sure. And then it would have been really interesting if I wasn't showing my hands, like what does this look like the rest of the way, where you're just like, what the fuck? How many low pocket pairs is Jaffe getting dealt?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
for
know.
sure. And so I think that this is like, I mean, if you think, which is correct, that I'm overfolding in these spots. Now, there's obviously some merit to the fact, like, okay, 40 BB big blind ante against a weaker player, maybe you don't want to up the variance, but you're finding a spot where you're able to gain a lot of EV by just shoving a lot of hands pre-flop here. So I think that that's definitely something that I'm going to try to utilize in big blind ante formats moving forward, because like it might look a little bit silly, and you're going to get called and look silly, but who cares? I mean, you're just gaining a lot of EV pre, so yeah.
I remember maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, I'm on break of some tournament at WSOP, and Taylor Parr is talking to me and Nick Petrangelo. He just got heads up. He's in the Thunderdome playing heads up in a 1K WSOP event, and he is tilted as because he came into it with a pretty good chip lead and really deep. It was maybe he has, say, like 90 big blinds and his opponent has like 40-ish. And he just like looks exasperated. And I thought he was going to ask me for some heads up advice, but he sort of was, but not really the kind I expected. He goes, dude, my opponent is shoving literally every hand. Literally every hand is all he does is shove. And he's like, what do I call with? And I remember, I'm pretty sure he said, is it like ace 8 suited, ace 10? And I'm like, sounds right to me, but fuck if I know. Like, man, that's tough. Like, you don't want to, like, he knew he had a huge edge. He said he was a complete amateur, his opponent. So I'm like,
yeah,
do we call like king 9-0? Like, what the fuck do we do here? How big is your edge when a guy's shoving every hand? And so honestly, this sounds comical for like a training course, but if you know you're outclassed by your opponent and you have very little heads up experience, you're not doing that badly shoving like 80% of hands.
Yeah, dude. I it's a pretty sick strategy. It's a pretty sick strategy, And a guy like, a guy like Taylor Parr, like when you get heads up in these spots, like people who have the experience, that's when you're going to create the biggest overfold, right? Because when you have the biggest edge, you're not going to want to put in a lot of chips. So
Exactly. Like, I realistically, if I were to make my best guess, if we started 60 deep and I had an opponent who's shoving every hand, I don't know, I think my ROI is maybe like 5.5 or something. Like, it's not some huge winning spot, because on average, you're going to maybe lose something like 6 big blinds before getting in an average of like a 58-42.
Nice.
That's like a reasonable guesstimate.
Yeah.
And then, if you're 60 big blinds deep against a player who outclasses you and you're not a heads up player, you're probably losing more than 5.5%. I can tell you that. Like,
yeah, man. And in this story you have, this is before big blind ante.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, like, imagine all of a sudden now you're winning an extra whatever. I don't know how much it used to be, but like an extra 8 of a big
you're
blind.
Spooping. Yeah. I mean, so, and put yourself in, the guy who's getting shoved on spot. Sometimes you go 12 hands without a hand that's better than king 6.
For sure.
Let alone, people might fold king 10 very easily.
Or ace 8 suited. Cool, man. Yeah, I think that's and then so yeah, you showed the king 6 suited, I believe. And I actually should have, this is one thing where, I have a lot of respect for your ability to do this, and it actually came from the 10-9-0 hand we talked about in the online ante, where you saw one hand and you're like, okay, extrapolating it in a ton of directions. And I think I'm like naturally a little bit yeah. I'm like naturally a little bit slower, but when I saw that hand, I should have immediately adjusted. And I think I was adjusting a little bit, but I think I should have really adjusted, because I actually think I fold another big hand to a big jam at some point in this.
Gotcha.
And, it's it's gonna be interesting to see how that progresses throughout the match.
Hope you learned a lot from this hand, and remember, this entire heads up section is available at PokerCoaching.com in the new advanced tournament course, which is available for all Poker Coaching Premium members. We're currently having our biggest sale of the year right now, and you can get 61% off. All you have to do is head over to PokerCoaching.com/Black Friday to get in right now. And before you leave, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons down below, down there. And if we get more than 1,000 likes in this video, before the end of 2022, I will release another hand from these two players' epic heads-up duel. That's it for today. Good luck, have fun. I'll talk to all of you next time.